And it's not strictly a Christian story as such, but it certainly, I think, makes the point. One day when I was a freshman in high school, I saw a kid from my class walking home from school. His name was Kyle. It looked like he was carrying all of his books. And I thought to myself, why would anybody bring all his books home on a Friday? This kid must be a nerd. I had a big weekend planned. Parties, football game, being with my friends Saturday afternoon. So I shrugged my shoulders and went on, didn't give it another thought. As I was walking out, I saw a bunch of kids running towards him. They ran at him, knocked all his books out of his hand, and he tripped and landed in the dirt. His glasses went flying. I saw him land in the grass about 10 feet away from him. He looked up and I saw his terrible, terrible sadness in his eyes. My heart went out to him. I jogged over to him, and as he crawled around looking for his glasses, I saw a tear in his eye. I handed him his glasses and I said, those guys are jerks. They really need to get a life. He looked at me and said, thanks. Thanks. There was a big smile on his face, and it was one of those smiles that showed a real gratitude. I helped him pick up his books, asked him where he lived. As it turns out, he lived near me. So I asked him why I'd never seen him before. And he said, well, he'd been going to private school. Well, I never would have hung out with a private school kid before. We talked all the way home. I carried some of his books. He turned out to be a pretty cool kid. I asked him if he wanted to play football with my friends on Saturday. He said yes. We hung out all weekend. The more I got to know Kyle, the more I liked him. And my friends thought the same. Monday morning came, and there was Kyle with his huge stack of books again. I stopped him and said, man, you're going to really build some serious muscles carrying around all these books. He just laughed and handed me half the books. Over the next 4 years, Kyle and I became best friends. When we were seniors, we began to think about college. Kyle decided on Georgetown, and I was going to go to Duke. We always knew we'd be friends, that miles would never be a problem. He was going to be a doctor, and I was going to business school on a football scholarship. Kyle turned out to be the valedictorian of our class. I teased him all the time about being a nerd because he had to prepare a speech for graduation. I was so glad it wasn't me having to get up there and speak. Graduation day, I saw Kyle. He looked great. He was one of those guys who really found himself during high school. He filled out and actually looked good in glasses. He had more dates than I had, and all the girls loved him. Sometimes I was jealous. Today was one of those days. I could see he was nervous about his speech, so I smacked him on the back and said, it's okay, big guy, you're going to be great. He looked at me with one of those looks, the really grateful ones, and smiled, thanks. As he started his speech, he cleared his throat and began, graduation is a time to thank those who helped you make it through the tough years. Your parents, your teachers, your siblings, maybe a coach, but mostly your friends. I'm here to tell all of you that being a friend to someone is the best gift you can give them. I'm going to tell you a story. I looked at my friend with disbelief as he started to tell the first day that we had met. He planned to kill himself that weekend. He talked about how he had cleaned out all of his books so his mom wouldn't have to do it later. And how he was carrying all of his stuff home so his mother wouldn't have to deal with it. He looked hard at me and gave me a smile. Thankfully, I was saved. My friend stopped me from doing the unspeakable. I heard the gasp go through the crowd as this handsome, popular boy told all of us about his weakest moment. I saw his mom and dad look at me and smiling that same grateful smile. Not until that moment did I realize its depth. Never underestimate the power of your actions, ever. With one small change or one small gesture, you can change a person's life. Now get this, for the better or the worse. The better or the worse. And it may not be an action, it may be an inaction. Don't ever underestimate what you can do to impact the world. For better or worse, God puts us in each other's lives to impact one another in some way. The question I leave you with today is not, can you be a blessing, but will you choose to be a blessing? Will you be satisfied to live in the overflow, or will you choose to live in the